We have to make this so valuable, people can't leave.
This Thanksgiving week, we're bringing you a special episode in our Inside Whissel Realty series.
Our biggest thing is we just want the agents doing the three things that make money: going on appointments, prospecting, and negotiating contracts.
Before we head into the final 2 episodes of the series with their top performing agents, Karlee VanDyke and Adrian Quijano, I wanted to highlight one of the more unique and powerful things that we've learned from the team.
Leads, we've always focused as brokerages, teamerages, teams, whatever. We got to give leads. But you also have leverage. I say, how do we provide leverage instead of leads over time? What if we switched?
A key lesson in this series, how to provide agent leverage profitably. A unique way they're bringing it to life, the ACE team, or Agent Concierge Experience.
We provide leverage for the agent's time, where they can get more time back in their schedule to go sell more houses.
Here in this short, jam-packed episode, you'll get a focused look at the philosophy, strategy, and tactics behind the ACE team from CEO Kyle Whissel, from COO Chris VanderValk, and from Director of Operations Shannon Youssefi, including specific tips for working more effectively with virtual assistants.
I was actually the first person at the company to bring on a VA. Oh my gosh, it changed my life. Changed my life.
Thanks for checking this one out, and be sure to catch up on any episodes you may have missed as we go inside Whissel Realty on Real Estate Team OS.
No matter where your business is today or where you want to take it, you'll get there faster and more profitably with an operating system. Welcome to Team OS, your guide to starting, growing, and optimizing a real estate team. Here's your host, Ethan Butte.
First up is Kyle Whissel, who shares the concept behind the Agent Concierge Experience, and he shares specific tips for providing this agent leverage equitably and profitably.
Our biggest thing is we just want the agents doing the three things that make money: going on appointments, prospecting, and negotiating contracts. And I used to say writing and negotiating contracts, but I don't even want them writing the damn contracts anymore, to be honest with you. So we actually have a whole team. We call them our international team. Subtle word change, big impact. Yes, They are VAs. They are overseas. But when you call them international team versus VAs, changes everything. I legitimately have people on my team who didn't realize our VAs were humans. They thought they were robots. It's insane. On my own team, it's crazy. But now you call them their international team, it changes things. So they're writing offers for the agents. They're scheduling showings for the agents. They're taking a debriefing phone call from the agent when they leave an appointment and just brain dumping everything that happened at the appointment. And they're scheduling the next appointment, or they're writing the offer, or they're updating the CRM, they're adding the to-dos. They're doing all that stuff for the agent. So we obsess over how can we strip everything away from our agents so they're just focused on those three things. And the beauty is they make more money and they have more fun. And it's really freaking hard to leave when everything is done for you, right? All you do is the things that make you money. We strip everything else out of the equation and you just focus on doing the things you got into this industry to do and make money.
A team leader listening or watching might be wondering, gosh, that sounds like a lot of service to provide. How do you preserve your margin and get what you need so that this is equitable on both sides? Because that's a lot to provide an agent. I think everyone can understand the value of it. They may not be able to execute as well as you all have, but I think that on its face, that sounds expensive.
Yeah, that's probably how I reacted originally. But once you start to understand the cost of having international team members, it's crazy. And now some of us have been to events and you go talk to these vendors and they're like, oh yeah, we'll hire VAs for you. It's $12 an hour, $15 an hour. I'm sorry, I just want to call those companies out. You are skimming so freaking much money off the top. Our VAs are typically making $3 to $6 an hour. We pay them directly, no middleman, $3 to $6 an hour. So just know if you're paying $12, $15, or $18 an hour, that company is probably skimming close to $10 an hour off the top. And you're stuck. If you ever want to get away from them, you either have to be shady and violate a contract that you sign, or some of them have a buyout clause now and you can pay them thousands and thousands of dollars to buy the contract out. That's crazy. Because we have, I think, around 30 or so on our international team, it's not that expensive, right? I'm paying somebody that's doing that job $4 an hour, which mathematically is $8,000 a year. So we preserve margin by utilizing international staff. We have anything that's client facing, that tends to be stateside staff, but anything that's not client facing, almost all of it's international. So they're doing all the behind the scenes stuff so that our stateside people are just dealing with client facing communication.
For more conversation and more insights into profit margin and profitability, be sure to check out our first episode in the series with Kyle. He shares specific questions to ask yourself or to ask other people for a more honest and accurate assessment of your financial situation. Next up here in this episode is COO Chris VanderValk, who sets the scene for us and explains the need to provide agent leverage profitably, and it's much deeper than just a recruiting tactic.
We have to make this so valuable, people can't leave. Period. Like, that's the simplicity of it. What I fundamentally believe is that, and I've said this for about, 2 years now to our internal, staff, and, over the last year, we've shared that more with agents. Agents are going, and this was before the NAR stuff, agents are going to do more transactions, and I used to say in 2024, now I'll say 2025, for the same amount of money. It's inevitable. Commission compression, consolidation, competition, like, it's happening. And I didn't always know the NAR thing was going to do commission compression, but you already saw it happening. And so data does that, technology does that, it gives consumer more access, it resets the table. So if that's going to happen, and I know the avatar of the agent gets in the industry, regardless if our best agent or a new Keller Williams agent, brand new off the street, they want as much time as possible, they want to make as much money as possible, and they want to have as little accountability as possible. That is the avatar that we hire for this. And so if I look at that, how do I provide that and focus on the margins separately? We have to be an organization that gives leverage. Gary Keller's book that's still not going to ever be old or outdated, listings, leverage, leads, the whole thing. Leverage is a big part. Leads, we've always focused as brokerages, teams, whatever. We got to give leads. Mm-hmm. But you also have leverage, and they're equal. And I think a lot of Gary Keller's book, Millionaire Real Estate, it's not a lot of books are, good from the late 90s, are still highly relevant in the technological world we live in today. So I say, how do we provide leverage instead of leads over time? Like, what if we switched? And so we've done that. We built an ACE team, Agent Concierge Experience, where we write offers for agents. We run CRM stuff. They call in post-appointment. We fill out their disposition form. Gives us better data, less bothering agents to do stuff we need them to do for us. So how do we just do it for you? We'll call you right after the appointment. We'll take the full intake. And our question always is, okay, what can we do more? Can we match deals internally by calling? We have all the access with our ISAs. What if the ISA department looked differently? What if it's just actually matchmaking internal deals and scheduling showings like Zillow does for our agents rather than asking them to go prospect? So how do we give time back? How do we offer value? And then the margin split profitability conversation second.
In that clip, Chris mentioned the importance of data integrity for your sales funnel. Here's a bit more from him on that.
That team does all the things we used to yell at our agents to do and just ask them gently to do it, or says, I'll do it for you. Will you just talk to me so I can get this information from you? Mm-hmm. Not many operations in the world operate with bad data or no data on what's happening in the funnel. Like I couldn't name one. So we can't operate without that data of what happened in the appointment. Did we go? Like Zillow's badgering us for it. We don't let our agents do any of that data reporting directly to Zillow, or for that matter, any other lead source, including internal. It's just not going to work. I've accepted it. So getting that better and offering more value, such as offer writing, creating custom listing and buyer presentations per client, integrating that with our marketing team. Really excited to offer more value. That has to be our pressure.
For more on how the ACE team provides marketing support to agents, check out our conversations with media manager Brian Kochi and director of marketing Max Bolanos, both part of this series. In this next clip, Chris explains why it makes more sense for the team to provide this leverage to agents rather than having agents try to provide it for themselves.
Some of our top agents that, they're making, high six figure. I look at their account and I'm like, oh my gosh, they could use an assistant, or they could actually, let me expand on that a little bit, like the ACE thing. The whole reason that exists, and same thing ISA, I think the agent's job is illogical on its face. Like what it's always been of like, you've got to be a contract writer, you've got to be an inspector, you've got to be a touring guide, you got to be good with people, you got to, like all these things you got to be great at to be like the top agent, like a Kyle Whissel, Chris Lindahl, like George, like you got to have all these characteristics. Is that realistic?
No.
Like, does that make any sense to anyone in any other industry?
Yeah.
And so the notion that they fail at most of those, they get a lot of bad raps for, but it's kind of a hilarious expectation to me. Mm-hmm. So, and they got to be a good business leader. So most agents, let's go back to MREA. You say, hey, you got to get an assistant. It's your first hire. It's like, yeah, everyone knows that. I think I'm pretty good at hiring people. I failed way more than I've succeeded with hiring people fast to fire.
I've heard that so many times from very early stage teams. Again, that agent who's looking to have like essentially a 2, 3, 4 person operation. Hire someone, they leave. Hire someone, they leave. Hire someone, they leave.
I've distracted my best producer by encouraging them. Why would I do that? And so I had a director of sales at the time, about 2.5 years ago, and she was really adamant. I have a staffing agency for VAs, and she's like, we just need to place one for every agent. And I was like, I don't hate the idea, but I hate the idea. I like what it provides for them, but like we can't dismiss the distraction that we're creating. Like we don't say, go hire your own TC. We say, we're going to build a badass TC department internally, and you have to use it. Mm-hmm. We say, hey, we're going to build a badass listing management team and system. You have to use it. That's always existed here. Most successful teams, that operation is non-negotiable. Why don't you have to use our inside sales? Why are we allowing you to call your own leads and not call them 22 times / text, email, and have a good marketing brand voice campaign that enriches them and wants them to reach out? Why do we allow you to screw that up? Instead, we bully you and we punitively create structure that if you don't do that, you're our worst agent. But what if you're really good in appointment with a customer? What if you're phenomenal there and you suck everywhere else? Should we not create a mold that allows you to be successful? Like, why do I want all these different roles from you? And so we're starting to prioritize between that ISA thing I told you about, ACE 2.0, and ultimately adding value around the agent is decoupling the agent from having 30 jobs they're supposed to be 5 stars at. And I want you to be really good with the customer. With our new agent advisor, but I don't even care if you're the strongest deal doctor or the strongest like every deal, just bring it to, we have once a day, come for an hour, come listen in if you don't have a deal. And if you do have a deal, ask the question, how do I get the best terms for my client? Like, what should I do? And eventually you'll grow into that. But I don't need you to start that way. Customer experience matters, I think, more than anything. Now, do I want incompetent people that don't know that? No, I'm not saying that. But do you have to be our best negotiator in the company to be successful? No. So how do we add more leverage at every spot where it's not the most important role of an agent to us? And how do we pick the best people, put them through our training to at least get 2 or 3 characteristics that are really important to us and have them exemplify those really well, and then we'll add stuff over on time as they're here.
You'll meet and hear from 2 of those top agents Chris referred to off the top of that clip, a little bit here in this episode at the very end, and a lot more over the next 2 weeks and in the next 2 episodes. But right now, we're going to go to Director of Operations Shannon Youssefi, who helped build the international team initially to support listing management and transaction coordination, eventually extending it to provide a lot more support beyond those bounds as the ACE team.
I oversee the people and the processes for basically anything like leverage. So we provide leverage for the agent's time, right? Where they can get more time back in their schedule to go sell more houses, because that's what we really want them focused on. So I oversee the teams of people. We have like an agent concierge. We call them the ACE team. It's Agent Concierge Experience. And it's basically like a group of people that do a bunch of admin work that's not specific to a listing or a transaction, but it's admin-oriented things. So it makes it so that the agents don't have to hire an assistant like for a very, very long time until they get to, a really high level of production. They have people that can help them put together, open house tours and booklets and things like that, scheduling showings, all that type, writing offers.
For a fun and well-told story on bringing on the team's first virtual assistant, check out our full conversation with Shannon. For specific tips for working more effectively with VAs, here's our next clip with Shannon.
So one thing I learned the hard way very quickly is that once you've delegated something to someone, that is their task from then on. Having clear lanes, right? Like if I record a Loom video, if I have given you instructions, that is now your thing to own and I'm never touching that again. And having clear lanes like that was key, because in the beginning, that's not necessary. I would be like, I'll help out with this and this and this. And then it caused confusion. And it was like we were doing double work or something, whatever. Like I learned those things. There was definitely like a learning curve in terms of training and all that fun stuff. But that was one of the first things that I learned, is having clear lanes, making it very clear who's doing what and not deviating from that, right? And then the other thing is you don't really know that you have the right person unless you have the right process or the right training. And what my mindset towards the whole thing was, if I've given you the instructions and somehow it's getting screwed up, I go back and watch my own instructions, which is painful. I hate hearing myself on. I'm always like, oh God, I can't. Why does my voice sound like that, right?
Yeah,
but I'm like, go back and watch it. I'm like, oh, okay, they're not doing that step because I didn't do that step in the instructions. So it's like that kind of extreme ownership where it's like, hey, I assume it's a me problem, not a them problem first, right? And if it's a me problem, that's a really easy fix. I can re-record the instructions, resend it to them, jump on a Zoom with them if I have to explain it, whatever it is. Having a regular check-in process. So like the first person we brought on, I had a half hour with him every single day. And then we dwindled it down to the point where we didn't really need to do Zooms with each other much at all. But giving them that check-in process once a day so that they can ask their questions was key. And it also helps manage your own time and theirs, where they bunch all their questions together, where you're really dedicating time to make sure that this person has the resources and the answers that they need, because they're not here. They can't pop into someone else's office when you're on a meeting. They can't pop into someone else and say, oh, hey, do you know anything about this? Can you help me with this? Like, they're not connected to the rest of the company, at least initially, the way someone in person is. And so that's an important part of that process. And then if you know that your training is really good, you go back and watch it, and you're really, really like critical of yourself, I guess I would say, and being able to look at your training and say, oh, this is not good, or this is really great. And I mentioned this mistake, and I specifically mentioned it in the video, pointing it out to them, and it's still not getting done. Okay, maybe you have the wrong person, right? Maybe they're not a fit for whatever role that they're in. But the step one is always like, okay, is this a me problem? And honestly, I would say 90% of the time, it's a me problem, or it's an us problem, or whatever it is. Like, that's generally speaking the issue when people work with VAs, and it's really easy to solve if you're willing to be self-aware.
I hope you found those tips from Shannon helpful, and I hope you've been inspired by this dive into the philosophy and execution of the ACE team inside Whissel Realty. I'd love to hear your feedback on this episode or on the series overall. Email me, ethan@followupboss.com. But before you head off, I'd love for you to hear from our next two guests and our final two guests in the series. Adrian Quijano doubled sales from 15 units to 30 units to nearly 60 units in his first 3 years in the business, all of them with Whissel Realty Group. And he's on pace this year to double it again. Karlee VanDyke, in her first 2 years in the business, has done about $45 million in sales with Whissel Realty Group. Here is how they chose Whissel Realty Group among all of the other options in the market.
You know, I interviewed with a lot of probably every brokerage in San Diego, even small teams, boutique brokerages. I joined one for a short amount of time, but there is no support or systems in place to actually be able to support what I wanted to do with my business. And the team member here at Whissel at the time had reached out to me and invited me to a meeting. And that's what did it. It was just coming into a meeting and realizing this group here, collective effort led by Kyle, we have the tools and resources, anything that we need. And that was a game changer. So I knew right away.
I knew that I wanted to be in a team because the team environment, the resources, the systems, it's already been in place. And I wanted a team in EXP that provided leads to their new agents. And for being from Guam and I never grew up here, like I don't have a huge sphere here in San Diego. And I needed to get my business up and running by getting leads from the team. So I leveraged the team's resources, the training, and the leads that they were providing. And then eventually my business took off.
Meet and learn from Karlee in our next episode. And be sure to check out our powerful closing episode in the series with Adrian. And if you're not yet subscribed, go to realestateteamos.com/subscribed. There you can sign up and you'll get email exclusive insights every single week, and you'll get instant access to 7 subscriber only episodes. It's all at realestateteamos.com/subscribe. Thanks again for watching or listening.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Team OS. Get quick insights all the time by checking out Real Estate Team OS on Instagram and on TikTok.